My daughter is 20 now, but when I was her age in my early 20s, I went through the most traumatic experience of my life. I fought the hardest I ever fought to win custody for her. I won custody of my daughter with no lawyer. I drafted my own custody agreement. And this is after me and her dad being arrested at least twice, going through a child services court case that happened because one of the fights happened while my daughter was home, and the day I won, the judge asked me why you should be a lawyer. And that's when I knew at that point that I needed to teach other people how to do this fast. Like, no one should have to go through the pain and the suffering, the sitting up late at night at school with a knife to my wrist, wanting to die after hearing her dad say that his new girlfriend was going to be my daughter's new mom and she wasn't going to remember me anymore. It was so tumultuous. But I learned three things that I want to share in this podcast about winning. The first one is that courts deal with facts, not feelings. The second, got to think about the bigger picture. The third, documentation. When I first started in court, I was crying, I was emotional, and her dad would come in well dressed, and he's a good looking black guy, and all the clerks would just be so nice to him. They didn't care anything about what I was saying or any of my worries or concerns about him not really taking care of her well. They were just happy that this black man was showing interest for his daughter, and he was just like, so prized and rewarded for it. His family paid for a good lawyer. I didn't have one. At one point, I did go to legal aid and get a lawyer. She was helpful, but then she was dismissed because coincidentally, she had argued in court for his mom. So it was a conflict of interest, and I had to do it on my own. But when I went back to court that final time to win, I did so without emotion. I did it with a full documentation of when I had my daughter, what I was doing with her. Each day I kept a calendar of it to prove that, I had more of an influence in her life. I also went to court multiple times. The clerk is your friend for paperwork. Make sure you bring money to get printouts. You can get a printout of your entire case document and follow the case from beginning to end. When I went in, I read a scripture. I read James, the first chapter, and it says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work, so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. If any of you lacks wisdom, you should ask God, who gives generously to all without finding fault, and will be given to you. But when you ask, you must believe and not doubt, because the one who doubts is like a wave of the sea, blown and tossed by the wind." And, my daughter's dad, to this day, he laughs. He said, I came back to court as a different person, because the mediator, that's the first person you talk to before you go to a judge to try to come to some agreement. They looked at me as unstable. But when I came back, with my documentation and with my drafted custody agreement of what I wanted after sitting in the law library upstairs in the courtroom and writing down, exactly what days I wanted, how I wanted it to be, I sat in a position of power. I had to learn the difference between sole custody and joint custody, physical custody and legal custody. You say you want full custody, but, what does that really mean? Do you really want child's father completely out of the picture, or mother, if this is a dad listening? I mean, maybe you do, but what do you really want? When it comes to you going out later or following your dreams, do you really want to never have a babysitter? I didn't have a dad in my life. Do you really want your child to miss out on having, perspectives of the other parent, or to not feel abandoned by, their dad? Do you want to not have your child have access to the other side of her family? I didn't meet my family until I was a lot older. It feels weird going to events with my dad. I remember when my grandma turned like 90, cried in the bathroom with my daughter because I didn't really want to go out into the party with people that were my family, but I just felt like, not really included. So you have to think of the bigger picture. And that comes with like your own freedom. Like, if you have to do it all on your own, what freedom do you have? Now, I wanted, legal custody because I feel like, I wanted the choice of what school she went to, If she's ever in the hospital, I have more medical knowledge and background. I want to be able to make the choice. I also wanted residential custody because, she lives with me most of the time. But, to get sole custody, like that person has to be a real freaking loser and danger to your kid. So you can't go with your feelings about what's going on. You have to go with the facts. And I had a lot of feelings. My dad, he married a woman, and they still are happy and living together. And she was light skinned. And, I attributed that to my daughter's dad going out and getting this chick that looks just like Rihanna. I felt really bad. It felt like it was playing out again. So my feelings were really hurt. But in the end, I want my daughter to have a dad. I always laugh with my daughter, when she talks to her dad or gets his opinion on certain stuff, because I'll say, yep, that's why I picked your dad, because he's more socially intelligent than me. I teach her how to stand out. He teaches her how to fit in and, do what you have to do and say what you have to say to certain people. So it's really important that we had her together. She gets like the perfect mix of this. Even birds, I remember learning this in a neuroscience course in college. Female birds will ejaculate sperm that they don't want. And I went and researched this, and it's true. Females, and why do female birds reject copulations from their mates? Done by Wagner, 1996, I believe. It says that females reject their mates to test the male's commitment to provide essential parental contributions after egg laying. The University of Chicago posted on August 2011 in the Science Daily News says that new research finds that even though hens aren't terribly picky about their mates, they are picky about whose sperm makes it to the egg. These results show that promiscuous females can actively bias sperm utilization to exert a strong and predictable influence on the struggle for fertilization. Dean said by doing so, females retain control of paternity even in species such as fowl, where males can force mating. I mean, how did I pick this guy? There was a reason. Like I said, I thought he would be a good dad because I thought he complemented what I lacked. He wasn't doing, that great of a job when I came home from college, and, the same bottles were in the fridge, and, she was at this person's house or that person's house. And I was, nervous as a new mom as well. But the bigger picture says, who do I have to include to raise my daughter for years to come? Like, she needs to know her aunts. She needs to have history to know, who she is, so she can know who she can become. Building a family tree network. It was her aunt on her dad's side that got us to Charlotte, North Carolina, because I was able to send her to live with her aunt so she could start school. And that same aunt actually would watch my daughter when me and her dad were going through it and had my back until they got in an argument. So it's really important to think of the bigger picture, and then documentation. Like, you can argue and say bad things about the parent, but mediators are used to that. Let's look at the legal process. You serve the paperwork, you go to mediation, you try to draft an agreement by the end of the second mediation, and then you go before the judge and sign it into law. There are children's advocates. It doesn't usually work as a baby because babies can't talk, but they're looking for the best interest of the child. So that's what you're really trying to prove. You're trying to document, how you're the best interest of the child when you have them, when you don't. Wanted to help people with different tools to document, like maybe I'd make a book or a journal so you could track. But in my research, I found that there are now apps to do this. I found a really good app called Custody Change, and it's a trusted tool for parenting schedules so that you can help separated parents communicate and become organized for the well-being of their children. You can track, if they arrived late or canceled at the last minute, or even if they didn't let you see your children. It's a great app. I want to speak with someone at work now who is going through a custody battle. She's my age, but she still has a very young child. And I hear her talking at her desk about serving paperwork, or the child's father, not having anywhere for the kid to be at. I remember those things, but I want to tell her, calm down. It's not about your feelings, but about making sure that that connection is still there. I hear her say things like, I should put an air tag in my daughter's bag. And, if air tags were around back in the day, I probably would have done the same thing. But, there's a mutual trust. Kids really benefit from having both parents in their lives. So if you can figure out how to do it, that would be great. And, we went through a long period of, back and forth and arguing, but now my daughter's dad and I are really good friends, never in a relationship, but we can help each other. I helped him get health insurance to get his tooth fixed. He helped me repair my credit with his business in like a month. For Christmas, we split the cost of the Prada purse bag that my daughter wanted. He paid 3/4 of it. I, just gave in the 100 out of the 400 because I had spent a lot on her birthday. And, that's another thing, child support and introducing, legal into that portion never really helped. What did they want? Like 45 bucks you could get, or 80 bucks or something a week. And that never covered the cost of anything. A friend of mine at work, when my daughter was around like 10 or something, told me, just text him every Friday and tell him you need some money, just so he is aware that, money is being spent. But that came after the realization that I can do this. God bless me with the ability to go out and make money. And without any help, I could do this on my own. And I started looking at his real contributions. Like, maybe he didn't give me money every week, but when school time came around, he spent. When Christmas came around, he spent big money. So, I just started looking at that. And both of us have gone through hard times, ups and downs, where, I didn't have much or he didn't have much. And we took on more responsibility when that happened. We raised a really, really cool, self-sufficient kid that knows she has both parents. And, that's the bigger picture. You come in with your documentation, you learn about the paperwork from the court clerk, you get an idea of your case, you write down what exactly you want, what days you want, how does it work in your life? What do you want school to look like, extracurricular activities, religion? What do you want it to look like for vacation or camp? Try to think ahead. Maybe you don't want anybody touching your daughter's hair. I learned that it was actual benefit since his girlfriend, the Rihanna girl, actually did hair really well. I stopped caring about that just because I couldn't do hair well. I took that as a benefit of, yeah, my daughter can get her hair done nicely. So it's like looking at the bigger picture over your feelings, not bringing those feelings into court because they've seen so many people arguing they really could care less, and then just figuring out what's best for you, what's best for your child, and documenting that all. Now I'd like to read you a piece called My Daughter Turns 18 Tomorrow. It's actually featured in another episode called Fear and Exodus, but it fits here real well. My daughter turns 18 tomorrow at Chantel Wright's October 22nd, 2022. I gotta write something because this is big. My daughter turns 18 tomorrow. That's an adult. I've done a good job, and so has she, in raising her. She rides a high vibration, and I do my best to keep it up when it starts to fall. I want so much for her. A YouTube warned me the other night not to hold on to her because I need her. That was good timing because earlier when I told her about the airport jobs, she said she would have enough to take over paying for our streaming subscriptions. Even though a state charity grant just paid off all my light and gas debt, I looked greedily for more. I said she could take over a utility bill. When I heard the YouTube, I realized that's a slippery slope to including her and needing her in my core budget. Instead, I will do a dreamed consult with her and figure out her goal and timeline for housing. Where would she like to live? What's the plan to make it happen? Launch. On TV today, a TV judge warned that a gift that is given and taken away is not a gift, but shackles. Exactly. Self-sufficiency is freedom. My sponsor taught me that. Chantel will be self-sufficient, not accepting outside funds and donations. A gift should not come with conditions, a lesson my mom shared with me in this lecture by Ram Dass. When I was walking the dog, I thought of so many warnings to give Kai now that she'll be spending her first birthday midnight outside of the house, outside of my reach. I walked up the hill thinking about whether or not I should tell her to drink. I played it out in two ways. The first, don't drink at all. Everyone else around you needs it to feel loosened up to dance, but you already lit. 50 Cent talks about the advantage of awareness he has by staying sober at all those big industry events. He sells effin' vodka, which is really smooth and grain-free, but he was also the first to brand premium vitamin water. Imagine if you could really live an epic life by taking a shortcut. The second argument, you only need one drink. You think you can handle another one because alcohol takes a long time to creep up on you. I thought of the many times I hung over the cold ceramic of a toilet or lay sprawled on some tile floor sick to my stomach from a few shots. You are extra sensitive to alcohol genetically, so you could quickly develop an addiction. But then I thought of her dad and aunt. Or maybe you may be able to drink like a fucking fish. Fuck. You may be able to handle your liquor and be a functional alcoholic like that side of the family. But all of this is my attempt to control and influence by reaction. I continued to walk and think about how I needed to get home and write a blog about the experience of my daughter turning 18. At the beginning of the walk, I thought I could just Google what to tell her about going out, like when I looked up separating from her when she was about to leave for college. She was supposed to be at an HBCU right now. She has a room full of amazing items that the family purchased off her Amazon wish list. I taught her the wish list. She executed it. When we couldn't come up with the fin for her to leave, and even a trip to Atlanta with her dad led to naught, she handled it like a G. She's been a G since she was a baby. I could never make her cry. So when my baby does cry, I know she's hurt. She enrolled in community college on her own and she's going to rock it. She let me know coincidentally after I'd realized the night before that community college was the biggest gift in my life. I'll explain more when the blog's about me. It's about her. Her whole life she had to constantly remind me it's about her. Her whole life I screamed, why does it always have to be about her? To be honest, I often imagine my baby was the baby Jesus and it's my purpose to sacrifice, take pain for this greatness that will be revealed beyond my dreams. I know my job is not to make her into what I want, but maybe to make sure she wants the right things. I try my best to understand where she's coming from. I remember she asked me if it's weird that she's never had a boyfriend, and I was honest. I didn't really have anyone to pattern a relationship off of, and so I'm pretty awkward with boys and socially overall. I tell her how I chose her father because I knew his strengths complemented my weaknesses. He could show her how to fit in. I show her how to stand out. No matter how much trash we talk, I let her know the birthdays and celebrations that made her life so special originated with her dad. He taught me Christmas should be big and full of presents. He bought her Gucci sandals on her sweet 16th. No matter what, we make her birthday great. This year we don't have hot water, yet. I'll never be able to deny that hardship. But those cold showers took me to work to get a bag just in time. I slipped $100 in her pocket to get her nails done. I sent her with my debit card like a blank check to self-pay at the renowned dermatologist. She's black and amazing and booked till April, but I made it happen. Her dad pissed her off when he didn't keep his promise to help with her hairstyle. But to avert my character of ungratefulness, I reminded her he got her the newest iPhone yesterday. He did it in revenge to separate from our family phone plan. It's a strong and timely symbol of our separation. All three of us will be self-sufficient. So I came in the house and I exclaimed that this would be the first birthday she spent midnight outside the house. I took off the dog's leash and tried to remember what time after 10 a.m. she was born. I always feel like it's 23, but I know that's just because it matches her birthday and it's probably 29. I tell myself I'll go find her birth certificate tonight and confirm. I keep hers and mine together in a laminated binder insert. Mine is tattered and white with Jamaican immigrant parents. Hers is new and purple and blue. My address is her great-grandmother's house. She was born to a mom in shackles. But I'm free now. Before her dad, I was also free. I was 18. I can't remember exactly how I was. I know I was somewhere between high school and my freshman year at college. I know I didn't have anyone to depend on really, but I also know I learned to party. So I tell her I'm not going to text her happy birthday at midnight, but at her real time of birth because she'll be getting shouted out at the club. Being the loyal daughter that she is, she says no, she'll answer. Insecurely, she says no one will be shouting her out. I tell her her friend should tell the DJ, but then I remembered me at 18. I said, nah, you go up to the DJ and whisper in his ear that it's your birthday today and what song you want to hear. Make sure they know. Yeah, I remember 18 a little. And so it's always the bigger picture. It'll be that way forever. You're not raising a child. You don't own that child. You're raising someone that's going to be an adult and have to make the decisions in their life and needs to feel fully complete in life. So our actions should always be about making sure that this person feels supported and feels complete. And I think that happens with finding common ground with both parents, if it's possible in any way.